The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Oh, I am jacked up and ready to go because we missed him last week. Keefer had some other business to take care of, and that is watching some Major League Baseball down there. Hey, man, You're allowed to goof off. You know how I am around here, though. We work on holidays. We work it every day. Enough of this, so you've had your time off for like the next couple of years. You're good
That's
to go.
right.
So I wanted to throw something out. How does the anatomy of how we handle our disputes, from a lucky punch in the smoking pit to the Supreme Court, sound to you?
I'm speechless, and that's rare.
Well, this Bediako case is just will not go away.
It won't.
The Alabama Supreme Court obviously denied Charles any playing time until his appeal is heard. And I'm like, wait a minute, what appeal? How many times does he get a chance to go back before court? I think it's like the third or fourth time, because every time we say it's dead in the water, he comes back at a different court level. And so he obviously wanted to play. The Alabama Supreme Court said no. Normally, you would assume that if he's under appeal, perhaps they would allow that to go through, but it didn't. So he's not going to be playing in March Madness, it appears, at least until the appeal goes through. And then also it appears that his appeal may be dead as well. But I thought to myself, with all the things going on in college football with the NIL and the transfer portals and all that stuff, we have been talking more about court. Particularly the NCAA versus House, obviously was, and that's not the House and Senate. That is actually the name of the individual who was part of that case.
Brought the suit, a swimmer.
Exactly. Yeah. And that kind of opened up the Pandora's box of lawsuits. And now everyone's going to court over everything. And then sprinkle in a little bit of Steve Mizrano and the Alabama Hammer and Alex Shinara. You throw those in. I mean, anytime you're watching daytime television, you know who they're speaking to. They're talking to unemployed people who are lazy because they're all court things. They're all people that say, if you've been in a car accident with a company, we can take care of you. And I couldn't believe how many zeros were on the end of that check. And I mean, in a wreck, get a check, that kind of thing. So I went and did a little research, and this is really amazing. Did you realize that from 2012 to 2024, we have actually had a 27% decrease in court cases in the United States? Personal injury, that's debt, and of course, also personal injuries, as well as debt collections and other things. We roughly have 66 to 70 million court cases a year filed in the United States annually. Think about that, 70 million court cases annually that are served every single year, but that is actually down from a high of about 100 million cases that we used to have back in 2012. So despite the fact that it seems like everything is going litigation, everything is litigatory, and it seems like everyone's suing everybody and all the people. And I keep telling my son, if you're a lawyer, you'll never have to worry about finding a job. You'll always have a job.
That's for sure. They always win.
They do. And having been in a case right now for a child custody situation.
It never ends.
That never ends. And so it just keeps going and going and going. And of course, until you fill up with that retainer, they're not going to work for you. But I wanted to get your thoughts, because I remember I was 15, 16 years old. I was in the freshman building at Lakota High School up in Westchester, Ohio. We actually had cows outside our windows. We used to take my dad's 9-iron, 8-iron late at night. And we'd go out there and we'd do cow tipping and hit golf balls at the cows outside of our high school growing up. That's how rural it was. And I'll never forget, we had this thing called a smoking pit. And this is where high school kids could actually smoke cigarettes during the school day. You're like, what? Yeah, you could actually go smoke cigarettes.
Wow.
During school. You remember this.
Oh, yeah. The back parking lot was our place.
And if you were in the smoking pit, you were pretty much a badass. I mean, you were a badass, man. If you were 16, 17, 18 years old smoking cigarettes, first of all, your parents probably didn't realize it. But it's also where you used to meet to fight. Whenever someone said, meet me in the smoking pit, that's where you knew you were going to go on there, and you were either going to get pounded or I was going to get pounded. And I was only invited into one fight. One time I was a freshman in high school. Football coach came up to me. I was in the marching band, class clown. I was in radio. I was having a good time. really not into the dating scene yet. And a gentleman named Dean Lape, who I'll never forget, who's still on Facebook, by the way. He's probably listening to the show. He was the tight end for the football team. And the coach came up to me, and by that time I was about 6'2", about 200 pounds. And he said, Lakota's looking for a great tight end. Why don't you try out to be a tight end on our football team? I had never played a stitch of football. He goes, we'll walk you through it. We'll get you through it. And I said, man, if you think this would be, and I knew the ladies loved the football players, not so much.
That's why I played.
Exactly. Not so much the secondary trumpet player, but they did love the football player.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I remember sitting there and he goes, why don't you come by after school today? We'll try you out. We'll do some 40s and we'll see how you test out, blah, 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 blah. But I was already like good 4 or 5 inches taller than everyone else. So I knew I had the size. And tight end didn't seem like I was going to be, getting pounded every single play. It wasn't a lot offensive.
Yeah.
And Dean walked up to me. He will dispute this fact, but I know it was true, and said, if you try out for the football team, I will beat your ass.
Oh, geez.
And so I was like, and Dean was kind of like a friend of mine. It's not like we had lunch together anymore.
Yeah.
He's on the football team. But I knew Dean. I sat next to him at school, and he was always kind of a nice guy. And I was thinking, because he was the starting tight end.
Yeah,
he was like,
you're a potential rival.
Potential rival. And I was quite a bit taller than he was, although he was built. I never touched a weight until, I moved down here in Birmingham when I was in my mid-20s. I never worked out a day in my life, but I was into track and I was really into running and stuff like that. And so he certainly had the size on me from a bulk standpoint. But I remember saying, if you go after school, I'm going to meet you in the smoking pit and I will beat your ass.
Oh my gosh.
And I had been to the smoking pit several times to see some fights, and there were occasionally that lucky punch. We can go back to Peter Brady. Do you remember the episode Peter Brady where he got
vaguely
smacked in the face? Do you remember the Opie episode where Opie goes
I
in,
remember that one.
He comes home with the shiner. He goes, look, Paul, look. And he's like, wow, he got you good. He's like, I know, and it didn't even hurt. And he's like, close his eyes and get pounded.
That was a bully, yeah.
You talk about Ralphie in A Christmas Story where he just absolutely annihilated, what was his name? What was that kid's name?
Was it Ralphie was fighting? I don't know. He was terrorizing him too, but he just beat the stuff out of him.
He had his was his name Fritz or something like that. Anyway, he had his little buddy that wore the little gangster.
Yeah.
that he used to hang out with. So occasionally a lucky strike would be matched, David and Goliath kind of thing. And I'm just trying to figure out how we went solving the world's problems by bare-bisting it, just absolutely just fighting each other to the point now where if you touch me, I'm going to sue your ass. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know you've been through a lot of different things. You were in a football team. You were a fighter. I know that. But I wanted to get your thoughts on how we've gone from handling things mano a mano to now, of course, I'm calling my lawyer.
I think you just hit the word right there, that it's the rise of lawyers. And maybe it could be traced back, Tony, for many, many years, you were not allowed to advertise your services if you were a lawyer.
Isn't that crazy?
That was like, it was like taboo. I don't know if it was illegal, but it was just not done. It wasn't proper. It was like, you got the association of being an ambulance chaser.
Yep.
I think when people started taking litigation as opposed to standing up to their problems, blaming it on somebody else, I think that opened Pandora's box, sort of like what we're seeing in college sports now. Once that box gets opened and that becomes kind of the mainstream norm, it's probably a lot more appealing to say, well, I'm going to sue your ass. I'm not going to stand there and take a beating or, throw down with you. I'm taking you to court. I'm not taking you to the smoking pit.
Yeah. A friend of mine, my father, we used to go to Vegas every year, and I've shared these stories, like 9 or 10 of us. And there was this guy named Pat, who was probably in his 60s, a nice guy, but worked for the Cincinnati Police Department. And went to Vegas one year, and man, he was throwing around the cash, and I was like, man, Dad, what's up with Pat? He goes, oh, he won a lawsuit, with the Cincinnati Police Department. He closed the door on his foot or something, broke his foot, and he was out. They fired him, and so he sued the police department, and he got like $80,000. This is back in like in the mid 90s.
Yeah, that was.
And I was like, wow. And then of course, 3 or 4 years later, he's broke off his ass, and I'm like, how's Pat doing? He's like, oh, he's just he's working at Kroger's down there bagging groceries,
Oh God.
And then a couple of years later, we go back to Vegas, and he's with us again. throwing cash around like it's nobody's business. And I said,
so he sued somebody else.
I said, let me guess. He goes, yeah, he won another lawsuit. And I said, how? And he goes, oh, he got hit by a police, they hired him back and then he got hit by a police car. And I'm thinking to myself, and I know there's people like this that actually go out and actually win lawsuits. There was another friend of mine that normally would say, there's no way I'm going to sue this individual until the lawyers get a hold of the case first. And they're like, if you're not suing the individual, you're suing the insurance company, right? So even though it's a friend of yours, you're not suing. Yeah. Well, ultimately, if you're suing your friend, you're suing your friend because it's costing us all more money. It's going to cost your friend more money down the road. But you're suing the insurance companies. Oh, well, if I'm suing those bastard, the insurance company, screw it, let's go for it. I think we can get you, And so he had a case where it was ended up getting like $320,000. It was one of these insurance companies that you see in television a lot. And by the time everyone had gotten paid, he walked away from the case with $62,000.
Wow.
And it took 2 years of his time. He lost his job over it. He's now working, as a like a night guard at a school. I'll just put it that way. And I'm thinking to myself, was it worth the 60 grand, that you got when you got a check for 320? He's like, I don't know, man, just what it put my family through. And the fact that, he said that he was disabled. And so he had to be disabled. He's not really disabled. I mean, he may look like, and of course they had cameras on him. They had private investigators following him around everywhere.
Sure.
This, that, and the other. And so, and then I'll remember one other thing. I was in a car wreck when I first got to town. Where I was pulling out in the middle of an intersection, and a guy went screaming through the intersection, hit me head on. And I hit the windshield, and he was in a company car, and it was clearly his fault. And I can remember the police officer saying, "Okay, we've called you an ambulance." And I was like, "No, I don't want an ambulance." And I was headed to work, doing an afternoon drive, and I was like, "I don't want it." And he's like, "You don't want an ambulance?" I was like, "No." He goes, "You need to go to an ambulance and make sure because you hit your head on the windshield, and you need to make sure you don't have da. And I was like, no, I said, I'm fine. It's cool. We make mistakes, blah, 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 blah. And then I remember his insurance company calling me like a couple of weeks later saying, Mr. Kurre, we will handle everything. And by the way, for your pain and suffering, we would like to give you $500.
$500. Wow.
And I took it. I thought, well, we make mistakes. Dude didn't want to pay attention. He just went flying through the intersection and $500. And I thought, well, that's $500 more than I had before the wreck. And, they're going to pay for my car and they're going to, and it basically was totaled. So I was going to get a new car of the deal. And I was going to get $500, not realizing it since it was a company car, I probably had $1 million lawsuit on my hands. Easy.
Well, let me tell you what happened after you hung up and said, yeah, I'll take that. They had 2 stamps for your file. SAP settled.
And I was in both.
You saved them $1 million.
Oh, easy, $1 million. And I'm not going to mention who the company was, but it is a multi-million dollar, maybe $1 billion company here in Birmingham that they probably would have struck a check just for me to go away, and you probably would have never seen me in radio again. So I look back on that and I think to myself, wow, that's probably something that I probably could have gotten into.
Well, it's funny. Mine wasn't worth that, but I was so excited. One of my first jobs, I became at 22 years old, probably the youngest track announcer ever in Memphis at the Southland track, which was one of the biggest in the world at the time for greyhound racing. About 6 months in, I was walking down after the races. One of the things I had to do was carry the charts from the chart writer down and drop them off in the office on my way out. And somebody had spilled like popcorn oil on the tile floor. And I'm just walking along, just minding my own business. And next thing I know, I don't know if you think about how slippery that surface is, like coconut oil.
Yeah, I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I know.
Yeah, my feet went completely out from under me, and I slammed down and it smashed my elbow on that thing. My elbow hurt for like a year. It's still, if I put it down in the wrong position now, I still feel it. You probably got a concussion. You probably bumped your head.
Well,
I hit my head, but nobody made a big, because my elbow was hurting so bad and it swelled up. Anyway, security, came up and wrote a report, and I could have sued my employer, but I was so grateful to be on board. I, didn't even this was, whatever, 40 years ago. So I didn't even consider it. I look back at that now. Every time I put my elbow on the desk, I said, "You're a dumbass."
I had a major concussion, I know, from that car wreck, and it still's affected me my entire life. My back injury, I'm sure, had something to do with it. My shoulder, both my shoulders. And so I look back on it now. At the time, again, I was in my mid-20s. And I just realized that accidents happen, and I didn't even think anything of it. And I just remember thinking how happy that woman was. Just like, is $500? I was like, well, yeah, because I didn't have. But at that point in time, I wish my insurance agent at the time would have at least called and said, "Hey, listen, they're probably going to make you some type of offer or something." But I didn't have that advice. So looking back on it, that was my $1 million pop. That was my middle of the shop, but.
And one other example, somebody really close to me was in a terrible car wreck. She was in the passenger seat with her daughter driving. Her daughter actually ran a stop sign, and they got T-boned on my friend's side. She had a broken neck, basically. Oh, wow. And they didn't know if she was even going to survive when she got to the hospital. She did survive. She's back in form now, but she wound up actually because now in this age, which we didn't have all these years ago at this time we're talking about, nobody was knowledgeable enough, or it just wasn't done. But now it's coming. She ended up suing her daughter's insurance company because her daughter was responsible.
Oh, wow.
And she got a $2 million settlement suing her daughter. And I said, "Well, your daughter's never going to be able to get insurance." She goes, "I just got $2 million. I'll find some insurance for her."
Some insurance for her.
I mean, just
hilarious.
think about that. That's how your mind, that's the first thing I thought is, well, that's going to screw your daughter forever. No, I got $2 million. My daughter's going to be fine.
Yeah, I was also in I'll never forget, because I just had my car painted. I was driving a Monte Carlo SS, 1984. It was beautiful. It was my dream car. And I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were downtown outside UAB, and a police officer was right on the corner. A doctor ran a red light and hit us. T-boned my car, totaled it. And at the time, my girlfriend sued. And basically, he had a better lawyer than we did, and basically said that the light must have been green on both sides, which is an improbability. But with that being said, it just goes to show that if you have the right lawyer, listen, for the right thing, when you're talking about a lifelong something or other, I certainly understand that. And I understand that we are a litigious society. I just don't like when the law comes into my sports. It's one thing that is like, you and I mentioned this too when we were talking about the innocence and the novelty and or the naivety of the college experience has always been not paid. You're going to have fun. We all went to college, and you go there for your degree, and less than 1% are you playing at the next level, and blah, 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 blah. And now it's gotten to the point where the lawyers will find you before you find them. And it's just amazing how many people I can imagine. I mean, like my friend Pat, to know that, and this was 15 years ago, I'm sure that he's probably, when he runs out of cash, he probably figures out something in order to go ahead and just do another lawsuit. I was watching my son watches these car crash videos, and he was showing me a video last night of some guy in Cincinnati, Ohio, who was on his bicycle and ran his bicycle head on into a parked car on purpose, landed on the windshield of the vehicle, cracked the windshield, and then tried to sue the driver of the car because the car was actually parked over the white line in the street. And what they didn't realize was the car driver had a dash cam. And got it all on camera, showing this guy sizing up the car, getting about 100 yards back, taking his 10-speed and ramming it into the thing. He went flying over the top, cracked the windshield, and it was all on tape. It was unbelievable. It was beautiful. And obviously the guy broke a leg, broke an arm. He didn't get shit for his because he caused the whole thing.
He should have to pay the driver for all the damages. Yeah.
I wish with the dash cams. But what are your thoughts? And I'm gonna let you fly. But
yeah,
what the Bediako thing, and it's so funny because every time he walks through a damn door, he's got to bow down. It's hilarious. He's the tallest black man I've ever seen in my life.
7'1".
Yeah, he barely fits through any court doors. Your thoughts on when and I'm trying to think. Can you take me back a little bit and give me a court case that was in any type of sport that kind of really outside, like a civil case, outside a man beating his girlfriend or something like that? But I'm trying to think because the steroid thing never really went to the courts, did it? I'm trying to think if there was anything else that were. And I know from an Olympic standpoint, I know there have been several lawsuits, but it's interesting.
Well, two landmark sports cases that set the tone in the 60s, of course, was for years and years, the same thing college sports is trying to get now, Tony, this antitrust, which just basically means you can't be as a group and write rules that prohibit people having individual rights because that fosters a monopoly. Curt Flood, an outfielder for the St. Louis Cardinals, got fed up that he couldn't, even though his contract was up with the Cardinals, they still owned him. So unless they give him his release, he couldn't even go play for somebody else. Yeah. They didn't want to re-sign him, but they have the thing called the reserve clause that went through every level of court, starting in St. Louis Municipal Court to the state courts, the state Supreme Court, to the U.S. Appeals Court, and wound up in the Supreme Court where he got a favorable decision. And that took baseball. That's why we opened this era of free agency now.
You're right.
That was a landmark case. The other one was Muhammad Ali, who was, of course, the heavyweight champion of the world. He was stripped of his title because he refused to enlist in the U.S. military. He famously said, "I got nothing against those Viet Cong guys," but Ali took a stand based on his religion, and so many courts struck that down that eventually that got to the Supreme Court as well, and they ruled in Ali's favor that he could, in religious objection now still stands. But those are the two landmark cases. But the problem with this era is the kind of the sharks in the water, the buzzards flying overhead. They're the ones getting rich on all this because the dirtiest word in college sports for years and years was agent. Herschel Walker, the height of his superstardom at the University of Georgia, was seen before a game shaking hands with an agent, and he was stripped of his eligibility for his senior year. He had to go to the USFL and play for a guy named Donald Trump for the New Jersey. Donald Trump, 33 years old, owned the New Jersey Generals.
He sure did. Wow. I forgot all about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been some really interesting situations there because Georgia and Walker sued and got no relief there. He had contact with an agent, so he's out. He doesn't have any eligibility left. Now agents are ruling the whole thing, and agents also are in partnership with lawyers, and these guys are running the whole deal now. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. An agent now will get you placed at a school, and 2 weeks later he gets a better offer from another school and calls you back and goes, "Hey, I think we might have moved a little too quick here," because it's just like a real estate agent. If he sells you a fabulous house this week but finds a better one where he's going to get another commission and gets you to agree to put the current house up for sale and go move again, every time he moves you, he's making more profit.
More money. Yep.
And that's kind of the simple way to look at this. The people that are running the show now are not the people who should be benefiting. It's the universities and the fans of those universities and the individual player. And all of us are just kind of pawns in the game now, while super agents like Jimmy Sexton and others and every lawyer known to mankind, the NCAA is a bad example. Instead of understanding the inevitability of players getting compensated, they fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, where they lost 9-0. The Supreme Court said these people have a right to make a living, and be compensated for their skills and their name, image, and likeness, not to be paid as a professional player. Name, image, and license, which has been bastardized, as you know. This is not about name, image, and license. This is giving them a contract to play football or basketball.
But that was the case that opened up to get paid to play, period.
It did.
Because they kept saying, we're not going to pay to play. We're not going to pay. They had to figure out.
They're student athletes.
Yeah, they had to figure out something.
They get a scholarship and 3 squares a day.
But they're making $500 to be on EA Sports, Madden's 2020 and blah, 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 blah. No,
and Bediako, don't kid yourself, Bediako. This is not a desire to go back to college and play college basketball. This is a desire to make big money. Because Bediako, in just a couple of weeks at Alabama, made $500,000. They gave him a bunch of money to come back. He was making on average in the G League $53,000 a year. They paid him $500,000 to hang around Alabama a month. Not to mention the fact Alabama's won 8 games in a row since Bediako has lost his court case.
That's not helping his case, particularly if that Alabama Supreme Court, who's going to be going through that appeal process, are Alabama fans. The other thing and we would do this on a whole nother show. First of all, I'm not hammered on lawyers. Good for you if you're a lawyer. There are some great lawyers. There's some really lousy lawyers. I had a lunch with a lawyer who's going to be hopefully starting with us on the starting lineup in the next couple of weeks on Friday. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the world. It's almost like, how does it feel to be like, with these other dogs? And he's like, well, I try to do things right, and you just have to, from a moralistic standpoint, remember how you were raised. And I remember from his father was also a lawyer. But then, to go along with that, the insurance companies. I mean, the insurance. Oh my gosh. I mean,
what a racket.
And I keep thinking, from a doctor standpoint, malpractice insurance is like outrageous. It's crazy. It only takes one to ruin it for the rest of us. But from an insurance standpoint, it's all going to lawyers and insurance companies. And, for me, if I could stay away from both for my entire life, it's a winner. If I don't have to deal with any lawyers or insurance companies, I think I've got myself a pretty good life. But I will say this, I got a lawyer right now that is lights out, one of my favorite people. A lot of people would say, the lawyer / agent should be the first person on your callback line. You know what I mean?
That's for sure.
Outside your wife and or husband, that's the first person you call when you give birth. That's the first person you call when you get a contract. That's the first person you call when you get in an accident. Because they're the ones that are going to protect you most. So anyway, I don't know if it's going to get more litigious or not. I have a feeling that this is just the proverbial corner of the iceberg as we look at it here in the world of sports.
I think you're right.
And I hate it because we'll never see that money, but it will be going in the pockets of all these different lawyers.
Well, it's disappointing that you have to talk about in basketball season now. We're talking about what's happening in court or on court, but we're actually talking more about what's happening in court.
No doubt, that's true. I think I'm going to use
March Madness. It's year-round madness.
I'm going to use that as a good tag. It's more about being in court than on court. I like that.
Yes.
Very, very good. Thank you.
The action is in court, not on court.
Thank you for throwing that to me. All right, coming up this weekend, another starting lineup. We'll be up there, you and me, doing our shindig.
And maybe we won't overthrow a dictator this week, and we'll actually be on the air.
That's the third time,
Trump
by the way.
do this on a Wednesday?
Well, why do we always have to do it on weekends? It was Saturday night, for God's sakes. Do it on Sunday morning when they're not least expecting it. You're messing up our timetable, dude.
I mean, we've had shows preempted now 3 times in the last 6 months because Trump's pulling some, and God bless him for doing it, but can't we pick another one of the 6 days of the week?
We're going to have a bang-up show this weekend. I have a feeling we can pull it off, my friend. I know tournament starting right around the corner, man. It's a great time of the year for sports, so check us out. Starting lineup, ABC 33, 40, 10, 30, 11 o'clock coming up on Saturday morning. Have yourself a splendid week, and thanks for coming back to work, my friend.
Hey, I thought I'd stop by.
I appreciate you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.